Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the Fandom Zone once again, ready to talk more WandaVision, another big episode, with my wonderful co-host, wonderful friend, and my Italian brother from another mother, DJ Nick. How you doing?
Hey, Charles, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Really looking forward to this. Wow, what an episode we got. There is so much to talk about. I will have to say, if he's listening to us, hopefully he is. I'm sorry that our third brother could not be with us today, Jesse Jackson, but we'll definitely miss him for sure, and hopefully we'll get him back on the next episode for sure.
Yes, I want to second your thoughts on this because, unfortunately, I decided to blow up our schedule today because after remembering that I had made plans with my parents to watch the Super Bowl tomorrow. So consequently, we normally record on Sundays. A little inside baseball here, but we normally record on Sundays. And I remember that I'd already made this commitment to my parents, and they asked me and my wife, Lori, to come over for dinner to watch the Super Bowl as a family. So I was just like, guys, I just remembered that this is happening, so we need a... And is there another day and or time we could record? And thankfully, Nick was willing to adjust his busy schedule. So my sincere kudos to you, Nick, for doing that. And, so salute.
Merci.
And but unfortunately, Jesse was not able to. So he probably, I'm guessing, is spending the day with his wife, Linda. I certainly have no qualms with that. I certainly understand that, being married myself. So it's just very unfortunate that Jesse's not going to be able to join us, but hopefully he will be back in our next episode 205. So stay tuned as we discuss WandaVision episode 6.
We had our own Scarlet Witch moment, I suppose, where reality was modified.
Yeah, and apparently, so apparently I'm like Wanda.
Jesse's now out of Westview. He's hanging with sword.
Jesse is Monica. Apparently I kicked him all the way out of Westview on this one.
Yes.
He does not belong here. So, no, I'm just kidding. But Jesse, if you're listening, my sincere apologies to you once again for screwing up our schedules. All right. Here at episode 204, we are going to discuss on a very special episode, ... the ellipses, as we discuss the 5th episode of WandaVision, which aired on February 5th, 2021, so like yesterday. So we're really on this one. Written by Peter Cameron and Mackenzie Dorr, D-O-H-R. New writers to WandaVision. So these are some new ones. Directed once again by Matt Shakman. And this one is probably the longest episode we've gotten so far from the show. A whole 41 minutes this time. So pretty much almost like a full network length TV show without commercials. So way to go, Disney. You reached the bare minimum. That's good. All right.
I actually felt very spoiled with the duration of this episode.
It's like, what? This episode's not over yet? It's been a half hour. Oh, we get a whole bonus 10 minutes. Fantastic. Very happy about this. So I'm definitely looking forward to talking about this with you, Nick. Lots of stuff going on, and I'm dying to know your thoughts. And I'm sure some of our listeners, like, hey, a certain Christine Peruski. How you doing, Christine? Are as well.
Hey, Christine.
So what are your thoughts?
Well, you know what? This show just keeps getting better and better and better. I mean, I don't know whether it's due to a lack of other, shows being around, this being the first MCU post-Endgame we have gotten. which is why we feel so positive and just love it so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to take away the quality of the show. I think it really is good. But I wonder whether it might partly be colored by the fact that we have been so bereft for so many months, and this was supposed to come out so long ago. It's almost like we're just glad it happened, and so we're fully embracing it. As I'm sure that if we really wanted to maybe nitpick, we might say there are a few problems with this show. But I think we're riding that wave of enthusiasm, I think, when and can also compared to the stuff we've had with the CW, which is it's such a different, almost a welcome change, if you will, from the CW. I love the CW episodes. This is a whole different vibe. And I think they're actually making the they're almost reinventing the superhero genre. They're adding to it. They're making it a little bit more sophisticated. And I really, really like that.
Yeah, that's obviously something we discussed here on the Phantom Zone before when we discussed shows like The Boys or Watchmen. Those are also shows that elevated the concept of superhero television or comic book TV, if you will. They stepped their game up. They weren't just like the Arrowverse shows that were pretty much paint by numbers in a lot of ways. They brought something new to the table. They were more innovative and groundbreaking and challenging. And as I grew up, with so much with reading comics and watching superhero TV shows, movies, what have you, over the decades, here and there. So by this time, I'm looking for something a little more. I want something more substantive, a little more challenging. And this show is definitely something that I think that meets that challenge. It's something that fits that criteria that I'm looking for so much as a viewer after seeing so many other great shows and great dramas.
Yeah. I mean, granted, I don't know how much creators actually care about this, but I wonder whether it was also a reaction to the so-called superhero fatigue. The people were complaining about superhero fatigue. I mean, I'm not feeling it thus far, but maybe, for that percentage of people that they didn't want to alienate with, here's another superhero show.
Right.
So I'm thinking maybe they want to change it around a little bit. Like it's like, yes, it's a superhero show, but with a difference. So it might be that, or the fact that they just want to experiment. And I think it's really going to nobilitate this genre even more so. The fact that they're doing this stuff, it's going to maybe inspire other creators to do something even more out of the box. Compared to, like you were saying, the standard paint by numbers.
Yeah, and I think this show, to kind of put this in its proper context, this wasn't originally planned to be the first Marvel Cinematic Universe show on Disney+. That was going to be The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is going to be coming up soon. That was actually planned to be the first, but because of production issues resulting from the COVID and various delays and whatnot, so that essentially now has become the second release. So WandaVision was, because they were able to complete this show sooner, they moved it up in the schedule. And as a result, it's the first one now that everybody's paying attention to. And obviously, I think expectations were very high. We got, the first couple episodes, I think a lot of people were kind of, a little let down because it wasn't we talked about this, like the typical Marvel Cinematic slugfest between heroes and villains. It was something different. I agree with you that I think the delay probably also, I think it works in the show's favor because it did make us, like, oh, hey, this is the first Marvel Cinematic Universe thing we've had because Black Widow keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed in the movie theaters. So I think it made us a little bit hungrier. And so because of that, I think people were, tuning in. They watched those first 2 episodes and they were like, well, what is this? This isn't what I want. And now here we are at episode 5 after so much has been revealed and probably still so much has yet to be revealed that we told everybody to be patient, and here we are. And now we can kind of say, I told you so a little bit because, or we told you so, because this really, I think, is now proving to be the show that a lot of people wanted from the get-go. What do you think?
I very much think so. Yeah, because to make a brief comparison, it makes me think of what if AC/DC on their new album came out with a ballad? It would probably throw people off like there's no tomorrow because they've never written a ballad in their lives. And everybody's like,
it's like, what is this, Aerosmith?
Yes, because because everybody's kind of making the comment that they have made the same album over and over and over again because it's always 4/4 time, straight guitar riffs and everything else.
Give the people what they want.
It's like, yeah, but suddenly if you don't, folks will be up in arms. As I said, if AC/DC, their next new single was a ballad, folks would be like, what is this? This is not AC/DC. I wanted Highway to Hell again.
Right. If I was
People
just,
never happy.
Since Jesse's not here, I probably should point out
Springs.
for him Springsteen, because like everybody has expectations for that new Springsteen album, and then he does a country album, Western Stars, and then everybody's like, what is this? So, so that one's for you, Jesse, just to let you know that we're thinking about you.
Yeah, it made me think of like with Bob Dylan's Nashville Skyline, same kind of thing where he did a country thing with Johnny Cash. Yeah.
Yeah, people freak out when you break out of your format that they expect.
They're crying for change at the same time.
Exactly. They're like, it's the same stuff I've heard before. Give me something new, but it's not whatever they thought they wanted. It's like, the artist goes into a different direction, and then people get frustrated when they do, because it's not the way they envisioned it and whatever in their heads of what it should have been. So
yeah, I really
so it's almost like a sense of entitlement, I think.
That's right. It's like you can't. It's like really some people are never satisfied. But to ring us back in here, this episode reminded me the fact that we're constantly going through different decades. Have you ever seen the Adult Swim short "Too Many Cooks"?
I have not seen that one. I mean, I am a big Adult Swim fan, especially from shows like Space Ghost or Aqua Teen Hunger Force or Metalocalypse or something. But I haven't seen that one. So. What are you referring to?
Well, Too Many Cooks, as for folks who know, that Adult Swim tends to do these very abstract, very odd shorts sometimes.
Right.
This is basically an 11-minute short where they go through the sitcom tropes.
Okay.
It's literally 11 minutes of an opening sequence going through the ages, and it's just nothing but an opening sequence. I don't want to spoil too much, but then something happens halfway through and we get a dark turn. And it just is very abstract and apparently it's like almost a metaphor of the creators versus the studio execs. But it makes you wonder whether the folks who did this actually did watch the Too Many Cooks short, because it's very reminiscent of that. I mean, it might be weird that they would go to something as Adult Swim for reference, but it's uncannily similar to this.
Interesting.
And that's why what I do.
Maybe I'll have to check that out. Hopefully it's on HBO Max or something. I'll have to check that out.
I don't know whether this is a illegal thing to say. It's on YouTube, folks. You can find it.
Okay.
Yes.
So for those of you who are inclined, it's out there. Okay. All right. Got it.
Yeah.
So I love the title for this episode, On a Very Special Episode, because having grown up in the 80s, the 80s is essentially my decade. So this episode I identified so much with growing up. And for those who aren't aware of the reference, On a Very Special Episode was essentially network TV code for this is going to be an episode where we talk about social issues. Like, okay, this is like almost like on a very special episode of Blossom, we're going to talk about drugs, or we're going to discuss teen suicide, or some of the more, not more serious topics, I guess, that you would normally not find on a sitcom or a family show.
So kind of mixing a public service announcement with the show, if you will.
Essentially, yes. Yeah. So essentially, like on a very special episode, we'd be like on a very special episode of Roseanne, and then, you find out that like, somebody has been raped, or, something tragic has happened, and the family has to deal with the ramifications of that horrible act, or just, the seriousness of the situation.
Okay, yeah, because I remember they did that. I mean, some of the sitcoms I watched, but I think that might be a little bit later. Like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air used to do this quite a bit.
Right. Yeah. So it was always be in the network promotion, or they would say like in the previous show, if they had like an announcer coming over the credits saying, stay tuned for a very special episode of family ties or what have you. So
Yeah.
So that's where that reference comes from. And this episode obviously is a big one because, well, at the very end of the episode, and this is something we're going to devote a third topic to, we need to talk about the introduction of Evan Peters as the recast Pietro Maximoff, Wanda's brother. Or is he? ... Question mark. And
oh, wow, yeah.
So that's going to be a lot of fun, I think. I want to mention him in the cast because as a fan of American Horror Story, and I know you,
of course,
Nick, you're a big horror guy, so you probably recognize, you're very familiar with Evan Peters from watching that show, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So,
and also, of course, the Kick-Ass movies as well.
In the Kick-Ass movies, and the X-Men movies, by Fox, where he appeared as Quicksilver. So a little different here. And he was in Kick-Ass, he was in the movie Pose, or the TV show Pose, but watching him on American Horror Story, I know that he's a fantastic actor. He's a guy that can kind of play like very offbeat characters, and then these offbeat characters can take really, really dark turns. He's got that kind of range.
Yeah, and it's also, he has, I think, a very particular face. That's
right.
the thing. Because, his say, facial features, just the way his face is structured, allows him to play, go from the creepy character to the nice guy to, like you said, the offbeat. So both his physical features and, of course, his acting range, he's a fantastic actor. And he's just gone from strength to strength.
He can kind of do those blank, emotionless stares really well. You just kind of like, with his face frozen, looking very ominous. And so that makes him great for American Horror Story. So it also makes me wonder if that's going to come into play here. So we'll talk about that when we talk about this new addition to the WandaVision sitcom cast.
Yes.
All right. Some trivia this time. In addition, since we're on the subject of Quicksilver, Pietro Maximoff, I obviously had to mention that Pietro was previously played by Aaron Taylor Johnson in Captain America: The Winter Soldier in a cameo in a post-credit scene, and also in the movie Avengers: Age of Ultron, which is a movie that gets heavily referenced in this series. And in that movie, as Marvel fans know, Pietro was killed saving the lives of Hawkeye and a small child as they were all scrambling to evacuate people from the nation of Sokovia when one of the major cities was elevated by Ultron way up in the air and was apparently about to crash down to Earth, killing thousands of people in the process if the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. hadn't done something about that. But Pietro gave his life to save Hawkeye. Bet you didn't see that coming. And Evan Peters, meanwhile, of course, played Quicksilver, a different version of Quicksilver, in the movies X-Men: Days of Future Past, where he was introduced, also X-Men: Apocalypse, a cameo in Deadpool 2, and Dark Phoenix, which was the last X-Men film that Fox was legally allowed to make. So,
true.
Yeah. And unfortunately did not really end with a bang on that one. So this cameo, this appearance so far, essentially makes this the first official crossover between the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Fox film continuities. So, pretty big deal, I think. And I'm sure it had to make you smile, right?
Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Oh, I was grinning from ear to ear. I have to be honest, Charles, and we will get into this more when we do tackle the Quicksilver character. Part of me was kind of hoping it would be Aaron Taylor Johnson, because between the two Quicksilvers, I actually prefer Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver to Evan Peters. They're very different stylistically, but as I said, I was just so happy. I was like, wow, they did this.
Yes.
I was just, because here's the thing, I don't actually tend to read the cast of people who will be in series, because I like the mystery and the surprise.
Right.
And obviously it had been circulating on the interwebs that Evan Peters would make an appearance at some point.
So you weren't surprised by this?
No, I was surprised, but because I didn't know. I was hoping that it was just because it just said rumor has it. So I'm like, yeah, it's probably a rumor. It's not going to happen, And I kind of put it at the back of my mind, kind of like forget,
Yeah.
And then
Trying to block it out,
happens.
like I want to be surprised. Yeah, that kind of thing.
But I was still just geeking out as all outdoors when it happened. I would equate it to the moment when I believe Hawkeye opens the van and Ant-Man hops out.
Yeah.
That's the level of how much I geeked out. Exactly that same level of that moment in Civil War. I had the same one with this.
Nice.
So I was just so happy.
Yeah, you're just like, I can't believe I'm so excited to see this character again. You're very excited. That's good.
It was like, yay!
Yeah. I mean, it's a big deal, and it's so tempting to get into this now. I gotta restrain myself. All right.
Yeah, we both have to because it's like we've gotten on the
now you know why I
train
want to
now.
Now you know why I wanted to devote an entire topic to this, because there's so much to talk about. Sparky the dog.
Nice.
I thought I'd bring this up because this is one for the comics fans, because Sparky the dog is named after a synthezoid dog that was created by the Vision in the Vision Volume 3, number 6, by creators Tom King and I believe Gabriel Walta, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct.
But this dog, is created from a neighbor's dog that ended up being electrocuted after digging up the body of the Grim Reaper, which happened to be buried in the Vision's backyard by the Vision's synthezoid wife. So I forget her name. Was it? I want to say
Virginia.
Virginia. Thank you. Yes, thank you. So you know what I'm talking about. But Virginia, needless to say, kind of goes a little bit Wanda in this regard. No surprise, considering she's from the same brain. She's from the same brain patterns. So no surprise there, right? But if you haven't read this series, it's a 12-issue maxi series. By Tom King and Gabriel Walta. I highly recommend it. It won an Eisner Award, so I definitely recommend checking it out. But that's where this reference to Sparky the dog comes from, and a little bit different. And in the comics, it was, like I said, a synthezoid dog as opposed to an actual dog here in the sitcom world of WandaVision.
Yeah, and it was actually kind of repeated the same kind of way that the Vision was created, because the Vision obviously had the mind patterns of Wonder Man, while here it was, as you mentioned, the dog Zeke, who was the neighbor's dog who got electrocuted, and he took Zeke's brain and put it into Sparky's head. So I guess he was kind of like Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein, I suppose. He kind of did the same thing that had been done to him.
A little bit, yeah. And it's kind of darkly comical as a result. So did you catch that reference, I mean, when you were watching the show, or did you have to be reminded of it when you were doing your research for this?
Well, no, because I'd actually thought at first, I actually went and watched the previous episodes that we talked about, where we had the Hydra Soap commercial where the dog appeared, where I'd actually mentioned that it might have been a callback to Vision's dog Sparky.
That's right.
But they're two very different dogs, so unfortunately it's not the same dog, because I wanted to actually make sure before I said anything. But yes, I did catch it, because I was like, as soon as the dog was there, I said, I bet you they're going to call him Sparky. Because as I mentioned on this podcast, Vision is like my ultimate favorite Marvel character. I have my two favorite top Marvel characters, at least in the male realm, are Magneto and Vision. And I absolutely love Vision. So yeah, I had this very much in mind. I was like, please bring in Sparky. Sadly, he doesn't last long on the show, but who knows? He might come back.
I was going to say, he might come back in maybe a synthezoid form, perhaps. We'll see. Yeah. It could be interesting.
Yeah, but I was so hoping we would get Sparky the dog. And hey, it's wonderful that every superhero has a pet, even in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well.
The name sounded familiar to me, because I obviously had read the Vision maxi series before this, so I was like, Sparky, where does that remind me of? So I wanted to make sure, so I went to I have a deluxe hardcover collection of the Vision, so it's right there on my, you can't see it, but it's just kind of right over there as I'm pointing to all the people in podcast land. So I pulled out my copy
with great revenants under a nice light, I hope.
Yeah, pretty much. It's on the really good shelf, put it that way. So with all my other deluxe hardcovers. So I pulled that out for reference, and I'm flipping through the pages, and I'm like, yep, it's Sparky. That's where they got that from. And so I thought that was cool. All right. So a little bit of comic book geeking there. So thanks for indulging me on that one. The opening credits for this episode and the house interiors, like I said, if you're an 80s, someone who grew up in the 80s like yours truly, if you're older than dirt like yours truly, you probably recognized a lot of references to the TV shows Family Ties, Growing Pains, and in the case of the interior kitchen, Roseanne in this episode.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So that particularly the Family Ties in the opening where, you have the kind of the sketch of the family that's right out of the Family Ties opening credits. And then there's like little snippets of other shows like Full House, which I think is kind of funny because, well, hey, Elizabeth Olsen's sisters, Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen, starred on Full House.
Yeah.
And I believe Elizabeth Olsen also appeared in like an episode or something of when she was very, very young. So
it was a nice nod to her older sisters, which was nice.
Yeah, it is. So I thought that was cool. And we have to talk about this. We need to talk about the Lagos paper towel commercial.
Oh, yes.
So this one, we get another, after taking a week off we interrupt this program, we finally get back to the commercials. And we get a paper towel commercial featuring the slogan, Lagos, for when you make a mess when you didn't mean to. And this is a reference, obviously, to Captain America Civil War, where in Lagos, Nigeria, that's where the Lagos name comes from, the supervillain Crossbones activated a suicide bomb vest intending to take out Captain America with him in the process. But Wanda, if you recall, managed to contain the explosion around Crossbones and tried to move the blast away from innocent bystanders. However, she moved it too close to a nearby building and inadvertently destroyed it, killing numerous civilians and 11 relief aid workers from Wakanda. Don't! And that was one of the things.
Yeah, but a slightly big deal. Just slightly.
Yeah, and that ended up becoming one of the justifications for creating the Sokovia Accords, which ultimately led to the superhero registration that was going on. That you had to kind of, be, sanctioned by the government or whatever to continue as a superhero. Otherwise, you would be considered a fugitive or criminal.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's the reference. So obviously, the Lagos stuff, that's another thing that, we've talked about as we've reviewed these episodes. Wanda's guilt over various things. And, there's the guilt involving the Vision's death. There's the guilt involving her brother's death. And also acts like the Lagos thing where she caused inadvertently the deaths of various people. So all this stuff is obviously preying on her. And weighing on her is probably why she's apparently had this big mental breakdown.
Yeah. And I think it's no surprise that the Lagos, the color of the logo is actually red, and we actually see almost like this blood red liquid being cleaned up, which could obviously be a nod to obviously the victims from Civil War that Wanda, obviously she didn't mean for it to happen, but, those may be symbolic of the lives that were lost. And I like that the logo was maybe a little bit reminiscent of Bounty, the Bounty paper rolls.
Right. The quicker picker-upper, yeah. If you remember those commercials from back in the day. So, yeah, I'm sure the red is intentional because, and it shows up at various points in this series. The question is, is it a reference to the Scarlet Witch? Red, Scarlet, get it? Or is it a different character?
Yes, which we have been teasing quite
like a certain Mephisto that we've kind of
Mm-hmm.
speculated about maybe pulling the strings behind all this. All right.
And actually, to add to what you were saying about the Lagos commercial, Charles, I thought what was also interesting was when the narrator says husbands can use it too, when we have the husband knocking over the glass of beer.
Right.
And maybe this is a reference to the Vision, who's maybe can see through the illusions or can control some of the illusions in Westview, because we actually see him do it when
Okay.
he snaps that chap out of it. So
Yeah.
when he frees Norm. So this might also be the fact that it's also calling in the fact of the Vision being a part of it. Maybe that's why they say husbands can use it too. So the fact that maybe he's also kind of, because he
He can also
things
manipulate
himself.
the reality, is what you're saying. Yeah.
That's what I think it might be.
That's a good
keys
observation.
to.
That's a great observation.
It might be it. That's what I thought, yeah. And also, it's curious that we get this evolution of the commercials, which seem to constantly strengthen women. In a sense, the woman continues to be the strong character.
Right.
Because we started off with the toast, where it's like when you burn his toast or sick or tired of him complaining, it's almost like the woman is submissive. And then we have the fact that she's relaxing. And then we have the fact that, the woman has almost become a dominant figure. And I wonder whether as we progress, the commercials will also reflect this kind of position of Wanda almost being the tyrant, or in inverted commas, tyrant of this world.
I think there's something to that. I think it's also that it's reflective of the time period that this particular sitcom episode is set in.
Sure.
Because as we're going through the various decades, the 50s, the 60s, 70s, and now the 80s, that the roles of women, or at least on television, changed. And, the women are becoming, they start entering the workforce as opposed to just being housewives stuck at home taking care of the kids. Being more in control of the situation, and or at least having more control by this point. And it also feels like that the evolution is like you said. I think it's symbolic, but I do think it's mostly a factor of the time period. So we'll see, and things are going to get probably more cynical as we enter the 90s and the 2000s, because that's kind of where television started going. In the 50s, it was this, almost nauseatingly wholesome, innocent environment.
Yeah, very, very schmaltzy.
Like
to use a Yiddish term.
Yeah, exactly. So something right out of a old Walt Disney movie. And now we're, as the decades progress, and there's more conflict being shown on television between husbands and wives and family members. Like they're not all just like, oh well, here's Billy and Tommy, and they're going out to play baseball and go build a race car or something.
Mommy's making apple pie.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's not so wholesome. It's essentially starting to become like the David Lynch version, where we're seeing that dark underbelly kind of poking out underneath from that wholesome Americana.
And isn't it curious that the only time we do see other children is in the commercials? As Vision points out, there are no other children in Westview. Mm-hmm. And the only time we see kids that are not Billy and Tommy are in the commercials. Right. So you do wonder whether, once again, Wanda's, maybe it's also part of her psyche, where the only kids she has are in these commercials, when she doesn't have them in outside of them. So it makes you wonder whether, once again, this is part of her mind being projected with these commercials of how she's dealing with, like, the Hydra stuff that she was obviously given the powers by Hydra. Lagos, the fact of the trauma from Lagos. So you wonder whether she's turning her trauma into commercials.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's weird that the only time we actually do have kids are in the commercials. And they're the same two kids from the Hydra soak and the ones that we get here.
It is very interesting, and it's kind of, part of the questions that we still have regarding Wanda taking over this town of Westview, because we don't know exactly how many people are trapped inside, and if there were kids, where did they go?
Yep. So, in fact, what Vision's the first to point out is like, our sons are the only two kids in Westview.
Did she erase them? Were they teleported elsewhere to safety? Maybe she didn't want to harm the kids. Just the parents. we don't know yet. So I think there's some of the questions that have yet to be revealed. So stay tuned, everybody. All right. So since we're on a very special episode, we have 3 topics, unless there's any other trivia that you wanted to talk about.
The only other thing I wanted to mention is what's up with the Postman? I wonder whether the Postman is a nod to the Fantastic Four.
Oh, you mean like Willie Lumpkin? That's perhaps.
I have a feeling it might be a reference to Willie Lumpkin. I'm just saying because we've been throwing Fantastic Four references or talked about it since the previous episode, so I wonder.
And we have another one I want to talk about.
Oh, yes, I see where you're going.
I think you know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, stay tuned. But I kind of wonder about. I was wondering about the mailman. So Dennis the mailman. This is a character that pops up pretty regularly so far, and he's one that makes a comment to Wanda about how they're out looking for Sparky, and the mailman just is like, "Oh, don't worry, kids. Your mom won't let Sparky get too far."
Yeah,
meaning that she's in control and essentially has power over whether people leave or stay in Westview.
So yeah, he is evidently cognizant of what's going on.
So my speculation is, well, I don't think he's supposed to be Willie Lumpkin. I'm wondering if that's Mephisto.
It could alternatively be it because he does seem very cognizant.
Yeah, or maybe Mephisto's several characters like Dottie and Dennis. So
yeah, because we haven't seen her since, have we?
No, we haven't.
And Mephisto is notoriously a shapeshifter. So
I kind of wonder if he's playing the roles of several people manipulating the situation. But I think we also need, if Dottie comes back, we need to keep an eye on her. But I think we also need to keep an eye on Dennis the mailman. You bring up a great point.
Yeah. I wonder. I really do, because I think that, I don't think, as we know, this show doesn't do anything by chance. No. Everything is done by design. So,
yeah,
there is a reason.
This is a very deliberate show, and I really appreciate the show for doing that. It seems like they put a lot of thought into this.
Yes.
And they're being very careful about what they reveal and what they don't reveal right now. Because obviously, this is only the 5th episode of 9. You want to save some surprises for the second half of the season, right? We're only at the halfway point.
Yeah, they really keep you on. As I said, they made it an appointment show. You really can't wait till Friday hits.
Yeah.
At least as far as I'm concerned.
Oh no, we have television to look forward to. Gasp.
Yes.
Right?
What a concept.
I'm clutching my pearls as we speak. Yes. But anything else you wanted to bring up in our trivia rundown?
I think that was pretty much a thing, because I think these characters are definitely worth keeping an eye on, because, as we both mentioned, Dottie's not around and this character's around. So I think your theory might be more close to the mark of it being a character who can take different forms. And the fact that Wanda doesn't even kind of bat an eye at either the fact that he kind of says, don't worry, she won't let Sparky get far. So it's evident that he knows what's going on. He hasn't been reprogrammed, if you will.
Right. He seems a little more aware than other characters in this show, inside Westview. Yeah. All right. So we have 3 topics. Topic number 1, let's talk family ties, which is a topic that I'm referring to Wanda and Vision. And then let's also talk Tommy and Billy. And we could maybe throw in Agnes as well a little bit here. As Wanda. We have a lot to talk about in this episode about Wanda. And interestingly, Vision is becoming considerably more aware that something is wrong. And so obviously that's going to be playing a major factor as going forward. And we get the introduction of Tommy and Billy, who age from babies to toddlers to suddenly 10-year-olds in this episode, in kind of an homage to sitcom babies being rapidly aged, so that characters on the show don't have to deal with babies for far too long.
Which was also a trope in the sitcoms, of course, as well, because there were
that's what I'm referring to.
where,
yeah. But so like there'd be like a baby's born in one season, and then in the following season, somehow they end up like going to kindergarten or something by that point.
Yeah. Or they're off to college directly.
Yeah, I know, right? Massive time jump, but everybody else looks the same. Very, very, very bizarre. All right, so there's a lot to unpack here. Do you want to tackle Wanda first, or do you want to talk Vision, or do you want to talk Tommy and Billy?
I think let's start with the main woman. I would say let's start with Wanda here,
Our
that's
big
probably
bad, presumably, or at least one of the big bads in this.
Yes, I was very saddened to see the way she reacted towards the end. I really was.
Yeah.
I was just like, I mean, she's Elizabeth Olsen. We keep saying this on the show, but man, is she really showing her acting chops.
I am going to be so mad if she does not get an Emmy nod. I would be furious because right now, we talked about it at least, when we were doing our first couple of episodes and we were spitting out theories that she was going to be so, she had the potential to become such an incredible character, her taking Wanda and making her just this fascinating, multi-layered character as the series progressed. And sure enough, we're getting that already with this 5th episode, because here's someone that we can see is struggling to hold on to this fictional reality that she's created and barely hanging on. We can see cracks in the armor and in this fantasy, and then meanwhile we see her later when after Monica sends an 80s style drone in to presumably just to talk to her about what's going on.
Not knowing that it's actually weaponized.
Yeah, not knowing it's weaponized, and we'll talk about that in our second topic. But Wanda does not react very well to that, needless to say. She essentially, uses her powers, gets a hold of the drone, and then here's the fascinating part: steps out of this Maximoff anomaly, as Darcy likes to call it. It steps right out of that. And
in her MCU costume.
In her MCU costume, and noticeably back with her Sokovian accent once again.
Yes. And that I don't think is a mistake. I think it's actually done for a reason.
Yeah, and so she essentially confronts the agents of S.W.O.R.D., especially the character Josh Stanberg the actor Josh Stanberg playing the character director Tyler Hayward, about using a missile on her and throwing it down and going, okay, look, you guys stay in your lane, okay? I'll leave you alone if you leave me alone, but this is my town. This is this is happening. And so I want to get your thoughts on that before I go any further, because I could just keep going on and on about what Wanda's doing. And I want to give you a chance to chime in here.
Well, I mean, I don't want to mess up your flow there, because you were flowing really nice. You had like an Eminem-worthy flow there, so that was great.
I wish I could spit it as well as he does, but.
But no, I really was digging the flow. But yeah, to piggyback off your point of the accent,
yes.
I actually did some research. And apparently Elizabeth Olsen has explained that Wanda doesn't have an accent in Infinity War because for her it was an actorial choice of showing that she was, and I quote, show her acclimating and hiding. That was the reason why she dropped it. It was actually an actorial choice. And that's why the fact that she suppressed it in Infinity War. But you mentioned the fact that now it's come back and it's starting to seep through. And what we mentioned earlier, the fact that Marvel and Disney, I don't think, do anything by chance. It's by design. And I have a feeling this will probably have ramifications when it comes to the fact that her accent is now in full force out. But I like the fact that she actually did explain it. So there was kind of a choice on her part of the character trying to blend in and trying to sort of... Yeah, and that was why we kind of lost the accent. But it had seeped in here and there during the course of this show, I've noticed whenever she talks about Pietro, she tends to kind of slip into it, and of course she sang in Sokovian. So I really like that. Also, what I thought was crazy was just the fact that she suddenly breaks the barrier. We see her in the real world for the first time, and it was since Endgame that we hadn't seen her out there in the real world. So I was kind of geeking out about that because, one, I love the costume choice that they made for the character. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's very practical because obviously if they put her dressed in the way that she was in the comics, it would probably be too objectified. I mean, granted, Elizabeth Olsen would look smoking in that, but it would probably be it would sexualize her too much.
We do get a version of that apparently in an upcoming Halloween episode, so stay tuned for that.
Which will be fun, but I can see why this costume is definitely more practical. Right. Because she can run around and do all the stuff she has to do.
And she doesn't have to worry about that kind of tiara thing around her head falling off in various scenes as she bends over or what have you. Yeah. Her headpiece, I should say. Yeah.
I really have to hand it to the costume department there as well, because they made a great choice with her costume. But seeing her so furious and so angry and just so hostile, it was, I think, a nice nod also to the Wanda we'd originally gotten in Age of Ultron, when she was on the side of Hydra, when she was, working for them.
The darkness, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just so, I mean, it saddened me because, we'd seen Wanda turn a corner and that she was essentially a good person. To her, it was all about, getting revenge on Tony Stark. She didn't want to kill the Avengers initially, but it was just about getting revenge. But man, I felt so bad. I said, yeah, she's openly declaring herself as the villain in this. And I was like, I felt terrible. And also...
But it was so fun to watch. I mean, she's so good at it.
Oh, yes. And the flaming eyes and everything else. It's like, this is Jean Grey all over again. We talked about the whole Dark Phoenix thing.
Yeah, we did. This is essentially Wanda's Dark Phoenix moment. And so I kind of wondered, with keeping that in mind, did Wanda have a complete psychotic break, and that we're dealing not just with Wanda's personality, we're dealing with multiple personalities perhaps, because she's got the sitcom mom personality that speaks in American, speaks English, or she speaks English in both, but my point is that she has an American accent, and then we have this real world Wanda that still speaks with a Sokovian accent when she feels like she has to be defensive and protective of this bubble universe, this pocket reality that she's created.
I think that's a great point.
Kind of like when we talk Crazy Jane when we discuss Doom Patrol on Titan Talk.
Yes. I think you're right on the money with that, because even in the comics, the Scarlet Witch is one of the more complex characters. Yeah. And it is kind of alluded to the fact that she might have either multiple personality disorder, or she might be slightly on the spectrum, so either bipolar or be, as we're slightly on the spectrum. So here they might want to give us this almost multiple personality disorders, and the traumas that she's suffered has caused her psyche to split into multiple personalities. So it could be just a result of trauma.
And also I think because of her powers becoming so out of control that they make several references that Wanda, she's never been this powerful before. She was just considered like a telepath almost. And or a little bit telekinetic, but here, she's manipulating reality, and that kind of power on top of just this vast mental illness, which what I'm presuming it certainly appears to be some kind of dissociative identity disorder, that, it's a dangerous, dangerous combination right now, and making her a very, very formidable threat. Especially, you've got someone that could just, almost like in a very Twilight Zone Bill Mumy kind of way, wish you out of existence with a thought. That's very frightening.
Oh yes, that's why I think the comparison to Dark Phoenix is the closest, because I also got some.
Yes.
She reminded me a little bit, especially of Famke Janssen's portrayal of that kind of switch of the kind of kind-hearted good person and this incredibly menacing personality. And I love that. I mean, because it makes the character really, really interesting, and it'll make you wonder, how do we solve this? And because obviously she's not a villain per se. It's the fact that there's more to it. And I think that also solves one of the big things that people have complained about when it comes to Marvel villains,
Right.
is that they tend to be more black and white or kind of hit and miss, with the possible exceptions of people like Loki, which is probably why people like Loki so much, is he's so multifaceted. And this could probably be the same when it comes to Wanda as well, that the fact that she's not, necessarily evil or necessarily good. She is, in that gray in between.
Right. And especially if there's multiple personalities being in play here, that one personality being good, another being bad. So we'll see. So on that related note, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you think it's possible that this situation with Wanda, or at least, this dark persona of Wanda, will be resolved by the end of the series? Because we know she's supposed to be in the upcoming Doctor Strange movie, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
So, Wanda seems like maybe she could be, what do you think? Do you think she could become the big bad of that movie?
It's something I'm possibly hoping will happen. I'm almost hoping that episode 9 will be like a cliffhanger of Benedict Cumberbatch saying, I'll solve this. Or do we have somebody we can get and suddenly maybe see the silhouette of a gloved yellow hand picking up the phone?
Right.
Without it being Benedict Cumberbatch, but it's Doctor Strange. That would be, I would literally lose my stuff if that happened.
But
if they called and they had...
Yeah, so it would almost be like this Empire Strikes Back moment where the thing, it's not resolved, and essentially it's set up, almost a prequel for the second Doctor Strange movie. That
I think that
come watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness to find out how Wanda gets taken care of once and for all.
Well, it would, it's, as we mentioned, this kind of a story, a big major story arc in comics. You finished WandaVision issue 8. You don't read Doctor Strange, but you might want to pick up Doctor Strange issue 255 to see what happens.
I kind of hope that it does get self-contained, because I think a lot of viewers will probably be mad if it's not resolved. But being how linked the Marvel Cinematic Universe is, it wouldn't surprise me if it's not.
Probably the major questions will be answered, but obviously it will open tons of new ones. So find out what happens next.
Yeah, or like something happens that Wanda is, the immediate threat is taken care of. Like maybe the residents of Westview are freed by the end of the series, but Wanda as a potential threat is still lurking somewhere out there in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Which could definitely be a great way, because at least, you've gotten her out of Westview and you've resolved that part of the story.
Yeah, right.
But as I said, I just really would love either Benedict Wong to show up or Doctor Strange himself to show up.
One of the two Benedicts. We got to get one of those, yes.
I would be so happy. But a rumor has it that they might, there have been rumors, and granted, they are rumors, so take them for what you will, folks. Right. There might be a second season of this.
Oh,
there might be, apparently.
Well, that would be nice, because if nothing else, it gives us another great thing to talk about here on the Fandom Zone. So as far as our podcast is concerned, that's really good news if that's the case.
Oh, yeah. And also, before we move on to the next character, Charles, I also wanted to let listeners know about the initial credits that we got when it came to the song that we got.
Yes.
Which is also very clear of what is going on right now. I wanted to draw people's attention to particular. No, I'm obviously not going to read out every single lyric. The ones I wanted to focus on that caught my eye was, "You wander the world with a vision of what life could be."
Mm-hmm. So Wanda and Vision kind of get worked into that lyric. Yes, I noticed that.
And also, "Forces may try to pull us apart, but nothing can faze me if you're in my heart."
Right.
Which is kind of nice, like the allusion to the Vision's phasing powers.
Yep.
And also, obviously, the Force is trying to pull them apart, which is obviously the people. It's a reference to swords, I'm sure.
Right.
And then the other one interesting is when the going gets tough, when push comes to shove, we're making it up. And they constantly repeat the phrase "we're making it up" is repeated twice. So it's clear that obviously this is a whole reference to the fact that Wanda is literally making things up as she goes in order to keep the folks of Sword out.
Yeah, and also inventing her own reality. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally.
So I thought it was worth bringing that up.
I totally agree. All right. Let's talk about Vision now. Unless you had anything else to talk about Wanda.
Oh no, I'm good.
All right, because it was really shocking to see her confront Sword, and we'll talk more about Sword here in a minute. So Vision, like I said, is starting to become more aware of what's going on, and which is great for the show, bad for their relationship, and so much so that he and Wanda have their own little standoff, in kind of a sort of thing that kind of reminded me a little bit of, this is going to sound funny, What We Do in the Shadows. If you've ever seen that,
I can see that.
Where you have where you have the two vampires kind of getting pissed off at each other, and they raise up and they start floating up into the air, like hissing at each other, and
I totally see that.
And it's almost kind of like that. That's what kind of reminded me of, to see them up on wires in their living room, facing off against each other. But
and can't Vision take off like vertically with his kind of standing up? He has to do the little pose with his knee up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he's about to do some kind of Karate Kid style move, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, because he's got like his knee sort of way bent back when he's kind of flying. I mean, granted, it's a nice pose. Bettany pulls off that pose.
It could be for balance. It could be for balance.
Yeah. Because maybe he's a machine, so maybe he's heavier. He's a synthezoid, so he might have to keep his back.
Or it's just a simple case of the harness that he's in. If it's just attached to his waist, if he doesn't balance himself right, he might topple over forward or topple backwards. Yeah. So he's got to be careful about how he positions distributes his body weight, maybe.
I mean, it's a nice pose, don't get me wrong, but I mean, it did seem a little bit unnatural.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Vision. So what did you make of him becoming aware and affecting other people, like Norm's reality, and also that big confrontation that Wanda just kind of wants to shut down the episode, has the credits roll, but the Vision isn't ready to end the conversation just yet, and they end up having a big face-off.
Well, first off, kudos to both Paul and Elizabeth, because they have extremely good chemistry.
Right.
Both when they're playing the lovey-dovey couple, like, we should have stayed in bed, when it makes you think of Infinity War and how loving they are with each other, to when they confront. It really is a couple. They really, even the fights, the arguments are very much the way a couple would argue in a particularly heated moment. It was kind of, should we say, painful on an emotional level to see them fight, because we know that Vision is so madly in love with this woman and so loyal to her. But I think that now he feels he's literally being lied to, because he's seeing through the lies, and it's just really, really naturally irritating is putting it mildly. He is furious about this.
Yeah, a little bit.
You wonder whether, if this continues, he could end up having a breakdown himself, because there is a moment where he's like, I'm kind of tearing apart here. I don't remember anything before this. And he almost has that almost Rambeau moment in the first Rambeau, where Rambeau literally, kind of keels over and starts crying to himself.
Okay.
And that is very, very much, I don't know if you've seen Rambeau.
It's over, Johnny. It's over.
That one, yeah.
Yeah.
Where they find Rambeau in a corner kind of crying like a baby.
Yeah.
It kind of made me think of that moment, because he is literally falling apart and he's literally having his own breakdown. And you wonder whether, the Vision himself might go around the bend if things continue this way. And so they'll both be two crazy kids having a good time. But
well, he tries to tell Wanda that he's scared because he doesn't know.
Really?
He's scared that he doesn't know. He doesn't remember anything before coming to Westview. So
The mental anguish is just so strong.
Yeah, there's, and again, I think this is symptomatic of Wanda losing control over her fictional reality, her fictional world. So, it's really fascinating to watch, and again, I think it's also an example of the change in decades, because it wasn't until the 80s where we got to see sitcom couples argue with each other, like on shows like Family Ties, Family Ties, or Roseanne. Up until this point, it'd just be like, oh, there's Mike doing that again, or that's Carol, shucks. But it's here, it's very representative, I guess is the word I'm looking for, that it's very representative of the time period that you're seeing as the sitcom world changes, as we go through the various decades and the tropes change, we're starting to see the show, the cracks in Wanda's fictional world start to become increased, and the more dangers to Wanda's ideal fantasy come to an end. So
that's a great point. And I just feel the fact that I said seeing him so tortured.
Yeah.
I totally bought Paul Bettany's performance in that. And it's kind of reminiscent of the reaction that Norm has when Vision temporarily frees him. Because obviously when he does his little fingers on the temples, which, always works, just do that and you're free. Yeah. But
now the question is, how did he get this ability all of a sudden?
Could it be? I mean, in fact, because he doesn't have the Infinity Stone in his head anymore, so it's because you might attribute it to that, or it's Wanda's powers having rubbed off on him when she resurrected him, because we find out that Wanda is also a grave robber.
So. Yeah, that's one of the things. You're right. That's one of the things we should probably talk about this a little bit. That we find out that it's confirmed. That part of the pun Vision that we saw in the previous episode of Vision essentially being a corpse, that with the Mind Stone ripped out of his forehead, this blank zombie-like stare on his face. So we get
called that one on our previous episode.
Thank you. Yes. So essentially, it was the hint that she got a hold of his corpse and is animating it. And here in this episode, we get confirmation of that. That's exactly what happened. Is that Wanda in the real world got a hold of Vision's corpse from a sword facility, and reanimated that as against what we're told was Vision's own living will, that he didn't want his body to be used as a weapon, so he made the Sokovia Accords asked that it not be resurrected, and his own living will said, I don't want to be resurrected because I don't want to be used against humans, against the people of Earth. But Wanda, she breaks in that facility, she steals that corpse. And as part of this, just this breakdown. And consequently, she's animating it in this reality.
Which is very much, as I mentioned, that's why he almost has that reaction like the Frankenstein's monster, who's just come back to life and is kind of dealing with life for the first time.
Yeah.
Like the Frankenstein's monster would do, because he's like, I don't remember my life before this. It was very kind of reminded me of the Penny Dreadful Frankenstein monster.
That's a good comparison.
Of not knowing what's going on and kind of, the trauma of having been brought into this world when you did not want to be brought into the world.
Like, Father, you created me, talking about, Dr. Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein, creating the monster, that the monster goes to use that, your point, that, you created me, I didn't want to be here, and, why are you making me do these things?
Which may also kind of play well into the fact that they're having that showdown, because just like Frankenstein's monster who harbors ill feelings towards his creator, it's almost like, the creation is now almost kind of rebelling against its creator.
Yeah, and again, yet another example of Wanda losing control over her situation.
Yeah.
that she's not able to completely wipe away her, Vision's, fear and resentment about what's going on. That he's very insistent. He challenges her about we talked about that. Where are the kids in this town? Norm. She said, he flatly tells her that, oh, by the way, I restored Norm's reality, and he's very afraid right now. He has a wife, he has a family, and he's not able to contact them. What are you doing? And he tries to convey this to Wanda, but Wanda, because of being so adamant about what she wants in this reality, doesn't want any part of that. She doesn't want to hear it. It doesn't exist to her.
Could we say that
only
Wanda's
frustrates her.
Being incredibly selfish?
Yeah, she, and it only frustrates him more.
Yeah.
So
I think the yeah. Go ahead, Charles.
No. I was just going to bring up the point about, when she makes this comment to Billy and Tommy about Sparky, where she says, you can't just age yourself up to avoid your problems, and you can't reverse death. So Wanda is being extremely hypocritical here.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So
selfish and hypocritical. Those are my two things I feel that kind of I'm upset about this, but it's that's what it is, plain and simple. She's being incredibly selfish because she's only thinking about what she wants and what she needs.
Right.
And at the expense of people who did not ask to be there.
Yeah. And just constantly living in this world of denial. So much so that she created her own reality because she didn't want to live in the real world.
Which may also, is very timely.
Yes.
For the times we're living in now.
Yes,
Everybody looking for comfort TV shows that they know so well to escape the very unfortunate reality of the real world. So I might suggest people inventing their own realities because it doesn't suit their personal agendas. So they'll create their own story.
They create their own narrative. And that's what Wanda is doing here. She's creating her own narrative.
So, without realizing, they were incredibly timely to have it postponed after everything that's happened between COVID and everything else. So it's kind of serendipitous for Marvel as well that it becomes so timely with, real-world themes and real-world situations.
Uncomfortably so, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Big stuff we're talking about here today, right?
We getting intense, baby.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Tommy and Billy. So I kind of mentioned that, these two characters eventually, more, I don't want to say adult, but like more teenaged versions become young Avengers. But right now we're seeing them only as kids, Wanda and Vision's kids. And they go through these very rapid aging spurts, from just babies in a crib to toddlers to 10-year-olds within a span of 41 minutes. Like at the beginning of the episode, there's it's very much played for laughs, like the sitcom episodes of episodes 1 and 2, where like the babies are crying and the Vision and Wanda are trying to figure out how to make the baby stop crying, put him to sleep. And interestingly, Wanda's magic powers, don't work on the babies. Thought that was interesting.
As in, maybe they're not her creation. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
All roads lead to hell.
Yes. But also, Vision. There's a great gag where he's putting the pacifiers in his ears, and then, takes them out, and Wanda grabs them out. And I thought there was a very slight that she rubs them on her shirt to clean off the earwax or whatever before putting them into the baby's mouths. And then the baby's
That's very hygienic. Wanda.
Exactly, right? And at least she was considerate, right? And then the babies just do this big spit take where they spit the pacifiers out way high into the air, and simultaneously. So
it's like, I think it's what.
Yeah, exactly. Spatoom. And But yeah, they go through these ages, and like the toddler versions are, they get a hold of a dog somehow, and they're cleaning it off in the sink, and they want Wanda to let them keep the dog, and Vision comes in, and they make this comment about like, well, you probably shouldn't be having a dog until you're what? And she looks up at Vision, and Vision kind of whispers, 10 years old. And so the kids kind of look at each other, and they age themselves intentionally to the age of 10. So now they can keep the dog.
Of course.
Yeah. So is it a case of that the twins can also affect their own reality? What do you think?
I wonder. I do, because the fact
wonder.
that she can't.
You wonder.
I wonder.
You wonder.
Yes.
See what it did there?
I wonder. Yes, I do. I wonder whether as we mentioned, these could be external creations of Mephisto, and therefore have their own deal going on of being able to grow up at will. And yes, it's curious that she has no control over them, and she's almost like shaking her head, going, "Don't do it, don't do it." And all of this while Agnes is happily around the house, and Wanda doesn't have a care in the world, that she's using her magic, and that the babies are growing. Right. And of course, we will talk about Agnes, because she's becoming more and more. She doesn't mind anything that's going on, so it's evident that there's more to it, because she's not questioning the babies growing up. And the fact that she asked Wanda to run lines with her, so we'll get to that.
Yeah, that was interesting. That you brought it up, that there was a hint that Agnes, is aware of that she's acting in this reality. And
they're kind of breaking the fourth wall.
She breaks the fourth wall a little bit. There's a very awkward moment, an intentionally awkward moment, where she flubs a line or something, and Agnes asks Wanda, "Well, do you want me to run that line again?"
Yeah. So do you want to take it and do you want to take it from the top, kind of thing? Yeah.
And Wanda almost seems like, "Well, gee, I don't know what you're talking about," kind of thing. Acting all innocent about it. And meanwhile, the Vision's going like, "I have no idea what's going on here. I'm completely lost. What is all this?" So it's an intentionally uncomfortable moment. And then until Wanda says, oh, don't worry about it. We'll just move on, that kind of thing. Shrugs it off. But it was interesting that Agnes seems to be independently aware in this reality.
Yeah, and she's more and more present in the situation.
Kind of like her, a little bit as well.
Yeah, kind of like our dear mailman. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I will enlarge a little bit of my thoughts on Agnes when we get there. But the thing I wanted to mention was about Tommy and Billy. I mean, okay, it's very evident that obviously one is in red and the other is in green, which is a nice little reference to obviously the silhouettes of Wanda and Vision.
Yep.
Also, I thought it was nice that one of the two actors we are familiar with from City of Angels, from Penny Dreadful City of Angels. So the kid is used to doing weird kind of occult situations. I have to be honest, I can't recall whether he plays Tommy or Billy, but the face I immediately recognized. I was like, yeah, I said that guy's from City of Angels.
That's well spotted. I would have made that connection. That's good.
So I was just like, yeah, I've seen that guy before. He's the weird German kid who was having all those odd moments in the house.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
So I guess maybe they chose him from that. But I think they do have their own kind of independent thing, because then they actually call their mom on resurrecting Sparky. So evidently they know her deal. So it's evident that they are not just mere creations of hers that are, totally oblivious to what is going on.
Right.
Which, I think I do believe it will lead us to Mephisto. And then I will be seriously annoyed if it's not Mephisto when we get there. It's like, what is this?
Yeah, that's going to be the frustrating part if we totally turned out to be wrong about Mephisto on this.
Yeah, and then Magneto comes down. It's like, it was all me.
Well, that's something I want to talk about in a third topic, so stay tuned. Just put a little pin in that for now. All right.
But no, I like these two kids. They were great.
Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting to see these two kids going forward, and will we get to see them age even further in later episodes? I have a feeling we will, because they like I said, they become, both of them become the Young Avengers, Wiccan and Speed.
So they may not just vanish into thin air, and we hear like a blood-curdling laughter.
Right. Somehow they may survive all this. We'll see. Stay tuned. Yeah. All right. Topic number 2, unless you had anything else.
I'm good.
Yeah, we've talked a lot already, and we haven't even talked topic number 2 yet. So, but that's okay. Third topic should be pretty short. So, topic number 2, Agents of S.W.O.R.D. So, let's talk Monica Rambeau, Captain Monica Rambeau, Jimmy Woo, Darcy, Dr. Darcy, and Dr. Darcy Lewis, and Josh Stamberg's character, Director Tyler Hayward. So, Monica, fresh out of, getting, the backstory on her, kind of wakes up from, being hurled out of the anomaly, or the hex, as Darcy likes to call it.
I'm glad they're starting to use that.
Yeah, so, which Darcy seems to think is short for a hexagon, but Wanda's hex powers from the comics, that's a clever way of integrating that a little bit.
Yes.
But so Monica is she starts piecing things together. She's extremely intelligent, and I'm really glad to see that. But she's she's the one who's been inside the hex. She's the one who can kind of give that first account, or first person account of what's really going on in there, and how she felt being under Wanda's thrall in the process. So I thought she was interesting. Jimmy Woo has a little, I want to say, kind of a confrontation with Tyler Hayward. There's a little bit of power positioning going on here. Jimmy Woo is just the FBI agent, but apparently I think Jimmy thinks he should be in charge of this instead of Tyler Hayward. And it seems like Darcy agrees with him.
Yes.
So lots to talk about here. You want to talk about? Let's talk Monica first. Do you think?
I think we can start with Monica.
Okay.
First off, I love the references to Captain Marvel. I was so happy those came up, and she's evidently very sore when it comes to that subject.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because, what you're referring to is Jimmy makes this comment that Wanda, she's got all this power, but she held herself with Thanos, and he makes this, or Monica makes this comment. Well, nobody else came close, and then Jimmy says, "Well, I'd argue that Captain Marvel came close."
And she suddenly freezes when he says that.
Yeah, she gets this really uncomfortable look on her face, like, a really sore spot with her, and says, "We are not talking about her. We're talking about Wanda." So she immediately shifts the subject from Captain Marvel to Wanda, back to Wanda. So do you think there's some resentment there toward Captain Marvel for leaving her mom?
Maybe
in the 90s?
I don't know whether she almost blames Maria Rambeau's death on Captain Marvel for not being there when she needed her. It could be that.
Yeah.
And heck, we might actually get that confrontation in future MCU movies. Across that, I'm sure we'll get that.
We know that
confrontation.
We know that Monica is supposed to appear in Captain Marvel too. So maybe that's just kind of something, a little Easter egg for people to go when they finally see Captain Marvel 2. Go, oh, that was mentioned in WandaVision later on.
And I'm sure they'll have that confrontation. It's almost like, I suppose, the surrogate parent, if you will, kind of leaving you as a child and never coming back.
Yeah.
And, and when she was on Earth, we know that obviously, Monica wasn't around because she's been snapped, but she never saw Carol Danvers again. So there's evidence. I have a feeling she somewhat resents the fact that she wasn't there when her mom needed her, and the fact that obviously they were such a tight knit group, because we know that obviously Carol was obviously Maria's best friend, and was obviously very near and dear to Monica as a child as well. Getting the nickname Agent Trouble or
Lieutenant Trouble.
Lieutenant Trouble.
Yeah,
which was obviously bestowed on her by Carol. So it's I thought it was
kind of like
great
your idol wasn't what you expected or hoped. So there's a little resentment there.
It's a major letdown.
Yeah. So we'll see. Though I'm guessing they're going to have to work that out.
So I enjoyed that, and also, what is the deal with the bulletproof bands? I don't have an explanation for. When she goes back to the costumes and starts shooting at the pants, and they're Kevlar apparently.
Well, she had a theory that Wanda isn't really creating anything. Her theory is that Wanda is only changing what's already there. So when Monica entered the anomaly, the hex.
She was wearing a suit.
She was wearing a bulletproof vest. So Wanda, using her powers, because there wasn't any bulletproof vests in the 60s, changed that to, or 70s, changed that to, fashionable attire. And so Monica's theory was, well, what if it's the same material?
Yeah.
So, she shoots at it. It appears to be bulletproof. So then she tests it, and it's like, it's like 87% Kevlar. So that kind of proves my theory that Wanda isn't creating anything. She's only changing what's already there.
Yeah. For sure.
Which again, if she is, that makes you where those babies are coming from.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Right?
And I actually, it surprised me though that Darcy had never heard of Kevlar. I kind of expected Batman to come swooping in saying, I'm Kevlar.
Does it come in black? Yeah. But another thing that I thought was interesting about Monica, the doctor that was examining her after her, recovery, took some tests. They scanned her, and apparently the scans were blank.
Mm-hmm.
So my theory, I have a theory about this, is that somehow Monica was altered by Wanda. And as a result, we're going to find out that Monica will have powers, like she does in the comics.
Yeah, she may actually...
She will be like an energy being or something, so that she becomes like whatever, originally in the comics she was the second Captain Marvel after Marvel when she originally joined the Avengers and whatnot. Then she later changed her name to like Spectrum and then later Photon.
Wasn't it Photon at one?
Yeah, Photon. And, obviously Photon is the call sign for her mother, Maria Rambeau, in this continuity. So... my guess is that she'll take that as her superhero name, and she'll become Photon.
Plus, it would obviously spare viewers confusion of how many Captain Marvels do we have.
Exactly.
So, I was going there myself. I think that it's probably given her powers. Like obviously, like
I think they're
being showered with cosmic rays.
Yeah. Speaking of cosmic rays, that's a wonderful segue to my next question, because later in the episode, Monica mentions that she knows, they're talking about that Maria thinks that she'll need essentially like a fallout shelter on wheels to go back inside the hex and not be affected by it. And, Darcy agrees that, yes, theoretically, you could do that. So Monica makes the mention that, I know an aerospace engineer who would be up for the challenge. So the big question is, who's that aerospace engineer? And I'm guessing, Nick, your theory is probably right along with mine on this one.
Could it be a man whose initials are RR? Could it be him?
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought to myself,
like a certain Reed Richards, perhaps?
I was so hoping that a flip phone would come out with the name Reed Richards and her about to call him. It's like, oh no, we won't call him. But she was about apparently to do something like that. But it would have been a nice tease if she'd done that.
Yeah. Maybe she has like a signal flare that she can shoot up into the sky that creates a 4 logo. If that's a little nod for all you Fantastic Four fans out there.
Yes.
But so the question is it Reed Richards? Because we know we've already had a mention of cosmic rays, or at least the Marvel Cinematic version of cosmic rays. So, and we know there's a Fantastic Four movie already on the schedule. So, and we know that there's apparently a rumor in a really big name that's going to supposedly, like a Luke Skywalker on the Mandalorian kind of way, just blow everybody's minds. So, what if the big name will be the revelation of who is playing Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, in the Fantastic Four movie?
I would be blown away. I mean, come on, they keep teasing the Fantastic Four.
Right.
This paper trail has to lead somewhere.
But wouldn't that be a really big thing to like finally reveal who's playing Mr. Fantastic in this series?
I was kind of hoping at the time it was going to be Christian Bale, but he's apparently been cast for another a villain apparently.
Yes.
So he's not going to be him.
He's playing
he would have been a fantastic
Gore the God Butcher in the next Thor: Love and Thunder movie. Yeah,
he would have made for a great Reed Richards, I think, unless we get one of the guys from the previous ones from the Tim Story film.
Yeah,
that would be kind of.
I don't think so. A lot of people want John Krasinski from The Office, so
he would be good, and also all the what's that man? I can't. I'm terrible with names now. I think it might be Billy Crudup. Was that the chap who played
Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen?
Dr. Manhattan?
Yes.
He would actually be a good
in Zack Snyder's
Richards,
Watchmen movie. Yeah, he would be interesting too. But so we'll see. We'll see who they get. But and another character that I was thinking of, would maybe be Adam Brashear, the Blue Marvel, who is a recent character in Marvel Comics that kind of on that Reed Richards level.
It could be too, but I have a feeling that since they've teased, the Fantastic Four so much, it's probably good old Reed Richards. But hey, anything could happen. Not to mention the fact that if Agnes is in fact Agatha Harkness, she was actually the nanny to their son Franklin. So it would also be that as well.
Yes. Yeah. What kind of babysitter do you think I am? So yeah, going for that.
I tell you. The
alcohol.
Marvel Comics world have some very odd babysitters, from Agatha Harkness to Squirrel Girl, who I believe is the nanny for Luke Cage and Jessica Jones's kids.
Yeah, Danielle. Danielle Cage. Yeah. That we'll see, but it certainly seems to be hinting. And Monica did get that message out. So seems like they're setting up that we'll see Reed Richards. If it is indeed him. But that would be huge.
I think
that would be huge.
It would be huge for sure.
Yeah. And there's no indication that anybody knows who's playing Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four movie yet. So, big stuff. All right.
Which is great. I like that mystery. I'd rather they don't make any announcements and it just happens.
Yeah, on the
kind
show.
Of like Yeah, kind of like with Doctor Who, where we didn't know that John Hurt was going to be there, and suddenly out of the blue you get John Hurt.
Or the actor.
I love that.
Or the actor playing the new companion Dan that they just revealed in Revolution of the Daleks. Yeah.
Yeah.
He shows up, no announcement. There he is. Okay. So
only the people on the show are privy to that information. I love that.
I love that too, and I would love to see that here. I think that would be huge for this show. All right, so Jimmy and Hayward have a little friction, little battle between themselves. For essentially, Tyler Hayward is very aggressive, obviously, because he was behind that missile strike on Wanda, and he seems to treat Wanda as a very serious threat. He calls her a terrorist. And Monica is all insistent that, she's not a terrorist. And Hayward counters, well, you did say that essentially you were under mind control that was excruciating, terrifying, a violation. But Monica's saying, well, I don't think it was for any political reason. It was just because she was, she was being protective. And, Wanda could have killed me when she kicked me out, but she didn't. So that doesn't, to Monica, so Monica is she feels that they can reach Wanda. She's willing that they can somehow talk her down from what she's doing. But Hayward is the opposite. He's just like, she's a threat. We got to take her out. And essentially, trying to assert control over the sword group. But Jimmy seems to think that, well, let's face it, Hayward's an ass. And Darcy agrees with him. So maybe there's a little bit of a power struggle that's going to take place. What do you think?
Well, he is very much that stereotypical suit guy, as in anything that is remotely odd is to be considered a threat. Mm-hmm. So naturally he immediately has to respond with violence. And you do wonder whether had the drone not been armed or weaponized, and it had just been what it was, whether Wanda would have had that reaction, because we actually see the explosion go off, because obviously Hayward's like, take the shot, and
Monica's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So you do wonder whether she would have come out and been so super aggressive and actually then manipulated the agents of S.W.O.R.D. and having them turn their guns on Hayward.
Yeah, all their laser sights. Yeah, all those laser sights pointed away from Wanda, because they were all like centered right on her chest, and they all start like, Wanda does her little whammy thing, and then all of a sudden the laser sights point right at Hayward.
Yeah. So you do wonder whether he got off on the wrong foot, literally, because he's all about strike first, ask questions later. Yeah, that's it. That's his deal.
Yeah, and I can very easily see his authority being taken away from him, or he just somehow. They do something to sidelight him. Maybe they give him a sedative, to use a Young Frankenstein term. And it's sedative. Sedative is in my head because of Young Frankenstein on Drunk Cinema. But somehow they take him off the board.
And you're fresh from editing it as well.
Yeah, exactly. So apologies. But so they take him off the board, and then Jimmy would step up, taking control of the situation because of Hayward's ineptitude. What do you think?
Yeah, and just the fact that he doesn't want to, he's not open to dialogue. He's just like, it's almost like we don't negotiate with terrorists. That's the way he sees it, because he sees her literally as a clear and present danger, which must be put down. Don't even try to listen to her side. She is an enemy. Kill her. Yeah. And we've seen this character in so many things. I mean, he even kind of reminds me of Batwoman's father in the CW show Batwoman. Where it's all about bring her down. Don't even listen to her side of the story. Just bring her down because she's doing things which I'm not happy with.
Yeah. And essentially he's like Walter Peck in Ghostbusters. He's the guy that the way too uptight guy that ends up just making the situation completely worse than it had to be.
Yeah, because I think Wu had this. He totally had it, and hopefully that will be the case. That your prediction does come true, Charles, and they somewhat are able to, get him out of the picture and have the people who actually have a little bit more reasonable, like Darcy and Wu, and have them deal with it. Yeah. And what really pleases me is so many folks out there crying out for an Agents of S.W.O.R.D. Show starring the Cat and Randall Park.
Just you have Jimmy take over, and then you could spin them off into their own little spin-off series, Agents of S.W.O.R.D., and everybody's happy, right?
I would love that.
Supposedly they're taking pitches for it. So, from what I read. So, here's hoping,
I mean,
right?
Even our close friend Zan Sprouse apparently was all about this.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, yes, give me that. I want the show like that, kind of an X-Files in the MCU of, Wu and Darcy solving supernatural crimes.
I'm all for it. Let's do it.
Me too.
All right. Anything else
Rather than remake X-Files for the nth time, do this.
Well, I mean, if it's a more comedic version of the X-Files, almost, and it's set in the Marvel universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, that's right there. That's perfect. Anything else about these characters before we move on?
I think we're pretty much good. I just love the chemistry once again between Kat Dennings and Randall Park. They really, really work off each other really, really well. And it's going to also be curious to see where Darcy goes from here, as we also lead into Thor: Love and Thunder when that eventually rolls around.
Yeah, it will be. And obviously we have to watch Monica, because if she does have those powers like I think she does, her taking those steps toward becoming Photon in Captain Marvel 2.
We might have a new superhero by the end of this series. It might actually be the surprise introduction of Photon.
Maybe. I'd say it's certainly a possibility. We'll see what happens. All right, topic number 3, final topic. Let's talk Days of Future Present.
Nice title.
Thank you. So let's talk Quicksilver's return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, only, whoops, it's the wrong Quicksilver, or the different Quicksilver. It's not Aaron Taylor Johnson. It's Evan Peters. So, Nick, I know you said that you were sort of surprised. You were kind of like, you read about it. You kind of filed that away, and you saw Evan Peters, showing up at the end of this episode, and you were like, yes. You were excited.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Any more thoughts on that?
Well, Charles, both you and I are big fans of The Flash, so either it's a speedster fetish, but of course Quicksilver's also a great character in the comics. He is very different in the comics compared to the film, to the MCU version, right, and also the Fox version, because he's very much more of a serious character, almost regal, I might say, because at some point does become part of royalty and what have you. But I don't mind the fact that they took this departure with either Aaron Taylor Johnson or Evan Peters. As I mentioned, my loyalty kind of tends to lie with Aaron Taylor Johnson, just because I love that actor to death.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great that in the first Kick-Ass movie, we get the two Quicksilvers together, because we actually have Evan Peters and Aaron Taylor Johnson on the same film.
Right.
Before either of them knew they would one day play the same character.
Pretty much.
So I thought that was great fun to think about it that way. No, I was just blown away. I mean, as soon as I heard the doorbell ring, which once again is Wanda, presumably, to kind of interrupt the fight that she's having with Vision. She has the doorbell ring, and Vision like, if this is you, and then we're not done here. And the door opens, and at first, obviously, we don't know who's there. And I asked the same question that Vision did when he's like, who is it? Because we don't even see the hair initially. We just see her open the door and Wanda looks shocked.
So here, I'm going to stop you there. So before we got to see who it was, the first time that you watched this, who were you like racing through? What ideas were racing through your head about who was at the door?
I was playing with two, either Quicksilver, or I was thinking we might actually finally get the review of Mephisto in a more revealing way, as in maybe not the demon, but maybe either like this distinguished gentleman, a la Lucifer, for example, where you can tell he's bad news,
right?
Or
finding out at least the actor who is playing Mephisto,
Yeah, that's right. Or I was expecting that, or like you and I talked about Constantine, or like a Peter Stormare kind of version of the character, kind of walking in,
right. Leaving little bloody footprints on the floor, if it's like Peter Stormare's version.
Yes, I'm not cleaning this up.
Yeah, pretty much.
I could see Wanda say that, but no, I was pleasantly surprised that when we saw the gray hair. Once again, it was a nice little tease of who's it going to be? Is it Aaron? Is it Evan? And boom, it's Evan Peters. And I was happy about that. And it's
silver-haired, because Quicksilver, get it? Silver hair.
Of course. and I like the fact that obviously there is that reference to the tendency of sitcoms to replace characters during the space of a season or whatever.
Recasting. Yeah, it was a kind of a little homage to, like, say, the recasting of Becky by a different actress, where Sarah Chalke takes over, I think. for the original
Yeah.
Becky on Roseanne. So just the, and then
Also-
even, Darcy even makes this comment. She's like, she recast Pietro. So essentially, because it's not the Aaron Taylor Johnson version, the one that we saw in Avengers: Age of Ultron. So that leads the question: what kind of ramifications do you think this will have? Because it's the Fox version of Quicksilver introduced in this series, replacing the Avengers: Age of Ultron version.
Yeah.
So what does this mean?
Well, there could be, there's so many theories here, but the one that I went with was what they did with the CW of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
So since it's going to be the multiverse of madness, I think here is the introduction to the concept of the multiverse in the MCU. And this is simply a Quicksilver from another Earth.
Okay. So that's, because there's the, like if she brought back Vision and resurrected him, she had his corpse.
Yeah.
But as far as we know, she didn't have Pietro's corpse. She couldn't just bring him back.
Right.
So the question is, well, if this is Pietro and not, say, Mephisto, where did this Pietro come from? And I think you're absolutely right. I think it's that Wanda reached out to an alternate Earth. The Fox Cinematic Universe Earth.
Yes.
And brought that Pietro because her Pietro's dead. So she needed a Pietro. So she reached out and, oh, here's one. And maybe the question now is, will that Fox version stay in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
It's a quandary
as Quicksilver.
It's a quandary because I do know that sadly, for what we know, Aaron Taylor Johnson only signed up for the one movie and then didn't want to do any more.
Right.
So as far as apparently now, things can change. He might find interest in it again. But as far as we know, Aaron Taylor Johnson won't be returning because the fact that he has not been approached to do any more, which is a shame, as I said, because I really like that character. I have a feeling this might be the new Quicksilver going forward.
Right.
And as I said, the concept of the multiverse of madness, we'll have to see how long he sticks around for, obviously, because for all we know, come episode 9 or even episode 6, he's gone.
Right.
We might not see him again.
You're absolutely right. This could be just a moot argument for the long term, but there is potential to keep him around. Let's just put it that way.
And it's also Disney and Marvel's way of saying we are going to be obviously plucking from the Fox properties now that we own them.
Right. We know that, because Fox obviously, for those who don't know, was bought by Disney. So which is why the characters that the X-Men characters and what's the other word? The Fantastic Four characters that I'm thinking of are now in play in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a result of that purchase. So, which is why we can get hey, Reed Richards being set up, and hey, here's the Evan Peters Quicksilver. So, so the question is, what else are we going to see? We know that they're working on a third Deadpool movie. So maybe Deadpool would be brought over as well, or how many other mutants?
Yeah.
Like how many from the X-Men First Class group will be brought over?
Yeah. Are we going to get? Yeah.
I was going to say, or say a certain Michael Fassbender Magneto, perhaps.
I would love that to bits because I think him and Elizabeth Olsen would have such great chemistry.
Right. Because that would be a huge episode 9 big name to have. That, and especially if Magneto is confirmed as the father of the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And it does actually happen when, obviously in Avengers Disassembled, I believe it is, when Magneto goes to pick up Wanda, who's obviously gone completely crazy before the House of M event. And I believe he actually shows up at her house. Yeah. And he takes her away. So, or should we say when the Avengers are actually attacking her, he comes down from the sky, takes her in his arms and flies away. Yeah. So,
Well,
I'm hoping we get that
I'll
kind
go
of
you one
moment.
better, because in the first
Go ahead.
Vision in the Scarlet Witch miniseries, in the fourth and final issue of that, back in 1982, that is the issue where Magneto confirms that he is
He is their dad.
the biological father of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, because I believe also their Quicksilver does show up as well, I believe,
Yes,
at
he
one
does.
point. So,
He
and he
does.
kind of confronts Pietro and Wanda with this stuff.
Exactly. So that seems like, if they're drawing from that, and we know that they are because of like the whole New Jersey small town thing where Wanda wanted to set up a new life for herself, and Vision, only, here Vision's dead. Well, that's only a temporary thing, right, on this show. But it would seem like, well, hey, that would be a great thing to show in the final episode of WandaVision, right?
Yeah, I agree. I
When
mean,
you're,
I would just
and also as a way to introduce mutants into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
You know what? Either Magneto would be great. I mean, I understand we probably can't get Sir Ian McKellen because he would be fantastic as well, just sweeping in, kind of going, "My dear,"
Right,
with his
exactly.
kind of sort of Shakespearean, English.
But I think if they want to incorporate Fassbender's Magneto, because let's face it, he's younger.
Yeah, because obviously Ian McKellen obviously can't play this character for
Yeah.
every many years now,
Right.
moving on.
Exactly. So presumably Fassbender would be a much more realistic option if they wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So
yes, I suppose so. Yes.
So it would be fantastic, I think, if he turns up on this show. Just a theory I have. We'll see.
Well, I would love that myself, Charles. I mean, as you know, as I opened on this episode with, Magneto is my absolute favorite character. So if we got, and plus I love Michael Fassbender and everything he's been in.
Yeah.
So and I just think there would be great chemistry, as I said, between him and Elizabeth Olsen. I just
totally
think they
agree.
would work so well together.
I agree, and I would love to see more. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about this episode? I know we talked a lot about this, but there was so much to talk about.
Well, as the
Jesse would be here like,
okay,
are you guys done yet? Let's wrap this up. But
yeah, he's like, I want to go home.
He would be, just sighing on the other end of his microphone.
Yeah, the only one little thing I wanted to say, there was a nice Easter egg from X-Men Days of Future Past when Quicksilver actually references Vision, calling him, I believe, a popsicle.
Yes.
A red popsicle.
Right. That was good.
Because that's always from Days of Future Past. When Professor X, Beast, and Logan go to the Maximoff house to obviously enlist him. And, obviously Quicksilver does all his rushing around, and he actually sits on the couch and is sucking on a red popsicle.
Oh, I never caught
That's
that.
where it came from.
That's see, this is why I love podcasting with Nick. He's so good at this. He does his homework. I love that.
I try. But yes, I thought that was a nice nod to us
Very
fans
nice.
of the... Right.
See, I don't feel like I have to shoulder all the responsibility when Nick's around.
What did you think of his attire? The fact that he maybe looked like Nick Moore from Family Ties?
I think that could have been and he kind of talked a little bit like Nick Moore from Family Ties. Because he kind of had a little heavier New York accent. A little bit.
I have a feeling he was a
yeah.
I think he was a reference to the Scott Ballantyne character. Yeah, the guy that Scott Ballantyne.
Yeah, because he's all like, long lost bro gets to squeeze his stinking sister to death or what? Yeah.
Yeah, and folks who don't know, Nick Moore was actually an artist in Family Ties who was dating Mallory Keaton from Family Ties. Was the daughter, right, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah, well, the oldest daughter. There was two daughters.
Yeah, the oldest daughter. Yeah,
there was Tina Yother's character, and then Justine Bateman's character. That was Mallory. All right. Favorite quotes? Got any favorite quotes you want to share?
I had a couple. I mean, obviously this being more of a darker and dire episode, we mentioned it a little bit. I did like the exchange between Darcy, Jimmy, and Monica, where Darcy's like, if all the sets and props and wardrobe were solid matter, that would mean she's wielding an insane amount of power. And Jimmy's like, far exceeding anything she's displayed in the past. And Monica's like, she could have taken out Thanos on her own if he hadn't initiated a blitz. I mean, nobody else came close. And she was like, well, I'd argue that Captain Marvel came close. And that is so a discussion that folks, that fans
Right,
of the show have had. It's like,
that's a
why did
fanboy
Captain
discussion.
Marvel...
Yeah. That's kind of like, our discussions here, where we debate all this stuff back and forth, right?
So I enjoyed that. And then the other one, I hope I don't steal any of yours
Go ahead.
Charles. The one that I liked was also Jimmy and Darcy. But how did she even do it? Bring him back without the Mind Stone? And Darcy's like, who knows? But she has the world's only vibranium synthesoid playing Father Knows Best in suburbia. What happens when he learns the truth? And we actually found out what happened.
That's a great question, right? Very question.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. I like Wanda talking to Vision, where she says, Vision, and this is where they kind of have their confrontation. Vision, listen, can we just... The Vision's like, what? Watch TV? Tune in for the night so that you can change everything over again? No, Wanda, you can't control me the way you do them. And Wanda very, very ominously says, can't I? Dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
Yeah.
That put him in his place.
All right. And then another quote that I liked between Vision and Wanda, which I loved because it was a great nod to Ferris Bueller. Another.
I hope I knew you'd catch that.
So Vision says, and he's very sad about Sparky dying, and he says it's not often you get a dog and bury them the same day. And Wanda very inappropriately says, well, life moves pretty fast out in the suburbs, which is a direct nod to Ferris Bueller saying life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you can miss it.
Yeah.
So
I hoped you'd catch that one because you being such a huge Ferris Bueller fan.
I'm a huge Ferris Bueller fan, and if you don't believe me, check out Zan and I on Drunk Cinema when we talked Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That is proof, right? Right there.
Ferris Bueller fandom aplenty.
Pretty much. Ferris Bueller fans assemble. So yeah, we did that. All right. So we didn't get any featured songs in this episode apart from the new theme music for the sitcom world, but so nothing as cool as Jimi Hendrix this time out, but maybe next episode. I was hoping we get to hear some 80s music, but no such luck.
Yeah.
All right. What's your rating?
I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 Sparky the Dogs.
Aw, poor Sparky.
Yes.
He ate too many poisoned azaleas, apparently. So hopefully maybe he'll come back as a synthezoid. Fingers crossed. And I'm with you. We're in sync on this one. I give it 9 out of 10 recast Quicksilvers.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Great episode.
Or it was out of that, or 9 out of 10, 87% Kevlar pants.
I'm Batman. Yes.
I'm Batman. I'm Photon. Yeah. Phantom Zone news, just real quick. The only news that I have is that the CW renewed a few of their Arrowverse shows. We got the pickup for The Flash Season 8.
Ooh, yay.
So, obviously, being Flash fans, Nick and I are very happy about this.
Of course.
Legends of Tomorrow got a Season 7, which surprised me. And Batwoman got a Season 3 pickup already. So, apparently, the CW must be happy with how Javicia Leslie is doing as Batwoman.
I'm enjoying it so far, personally, so I can see that.
Yeah, and another great bit of news is that Superman and Lois got an additional 2 episodes to go along with its already 13-episode order for Season 1. So that means that raises the total for Season 1 to 15 now instead of 13.
Not bad.
So they must feel pretty confident at least, or they feel that Superman and Lois can plug some holes in their schedule. I don't know. Either way, we're getting 2 more episodes, so that's cool, right?
Yeah.
Phantom Zone fan mail, well, we did get some feedback, and from a certain Holly Mack writing in once again.
Yay.
And I'm very glad. Holly put this in her subject heading. Don't read until you've watched WandaVision episode 5.
Well, see, that's very, very thoughtful of her.
It was.
I suppose, did she write to you like as soon as the episode? Was it a Friday when she actually wrote to you, or was it today?
So she sent that to me at 8:07 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, okay.
So apparently, and I'll go in this, she talks about it in the email, but apparently Holly listened to my comments in the previous episode, how I avoided narrowly reading her email and getting spoiled. So, but it's obviously not Holly's fault. It's just the way it is. She's very excited, and she gets to watch it early. So I don't begrudge her in the slightest at all.
We appreciate your fandom and enthusiasm.
Yeah, exactly. We definitely
that's what it's all
appreciate
about.
We definitely want you writing in. So we're cool with it. And I just thought it was funny that Holly acknowledged that. She goes, "Hey, Charles, Jesse, and Nick." Well, sadly, Jesse's not here, but hopefully next episode he'll be back. As for my early emails, I treat myself to watching WandaVision before heading into work on Friday mornings. And I have my email up next to me while watching it. That way, I remember to send it in right away. So that's why she gets it in so early.
Well, that's efficiency for you.
Right. She's got her email up. She's got her episode. As soon as it's done, boom, she's right there typing away. Boom, boom, boom.
And then off to work.
Yeah, right. That's cool. I respect the routine.
Total respect.
Yep. Wanda and Vision learning the ins and outs of parenthood. Not too surprised that the twins didn't stay babies for long. Something's up with Monica and her labs and x-rays not coming up with anything. Well, we pitched our theories about why that might be. We'll see if we're right. Darcy brings up a really good point about what Vision's going to do when he finds out the truth about what Wanda did to bring him back. Yeah. The question is he really back, or is it just animated like a puppet kind of thing going on?
Grave robber.
Grave robber.
That's what it is.
A lot of grave robbing going on in my week with Young Frankenstein and WandaVision, interestingly.
It was grave robbing week.
It's grave robbing week here on the podcast. All right. Vision's already starting to get the feeling that something is off. Yeah, slightly. Monica trying to de-escalate the situation with Wanda. At least she tried. I agree. Wanda telling the boys that she can't bring Sparky back and that aging rapidly isn't always an option, which kind of goes against what Wanda actually did. Yes, it does. A little bit hypocritical, like we said. Vision calling out Wanda, and even Wanda not being sure makes me wonder if she's lying to both herself and Vision, or there really is someone else behind all this. Could be. Man, the ending with Pietro coming back was somewhat, pardon the pun, was something I didn't see coming. I see what you did there.
Thanks for doing that one, Holly, because we totally missed doing that one. I didn't see, neither of us did that. So thanks for doing that, Holly. Appreciate it.
Holly's got us covered. She's got our back on this one. So this is why we love listening or reading Holly's emails. Is it Friday yet? Question mark. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
Always great to hear from you. And if you want to be like Holly, please do write to us. PhantomZonecast@gmail.com. That's PhantomZonecast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know your WandaVision theories. I'm sure you've got your own. Looking at you, Christine Peruski, if you're listening. So share them with us. We want to hear your thoughts. Give us all the thoughts. And otherwise, you can reach us on Twitter @PhantomZonecast on Twitter, Facebook, The Phantom Zone Podcast, or Instagram @PhantomZonePodcast. Nick, where can they find all of your illustrious work out there on the interwebs? And by the way, if you send an email, does that mean you have to, where do you put the stamp?
Yes, I'm still figuring that out myself, to be honest. I'm still understanding, trying to work out the electronic mail.
Right.
But
I just love we got to see a Commodore 64 because I used to have a Commodore 64 back in the day. So I
Good times.
Mad respect for that. Although I never had email on it. I don't know how the hell you got email in the 80s, but okay. Had to wait till the 90s for that. Maybe CompuServe.
They're super. CompuServe, yeah, I guess it's just like they're super high tech in Vision's office. That's all we can say.
Yeah, that's like cutting edge, right?
Yes. Well. Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, when it comes to me, folks, if you are fans of country music, I do host the Whiskey and Cigarettes show where we play today's country, traditional country, and everything else in between. For more information about that and where to tune in, you can visit our website. That's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. Podcast-wise, if superhero movies are your speed, I do host the Happiness and Darkness podcast where we discuss superhero movies from Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, and more. If you'd like to discuss your favorite superhero movie, feel free to send us an email, happinessanddarknesshow@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and the Instagram. And also, be sure to check out Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, where myself, Zan Sprouse, and Rich Friend are talking all the movies that won the Oscar for Best Picture, from 1927's Wings to present day. For Charles, it's been grave robbing week. For us, it's been holiday week in the middle of February, as we just finished discussing Going My Way, which is a Christmassy movie, and we'll be doing our Patreon episode of It's a Wonderful Life in the middle of February, believe it or not. But that's
a fun one just to gauge on how Rachel Friend thought of that movie.
I'm looking forward mainly to Rachel's review when it comes to that one. But yes, you can find us, find the Gold Standard podcast. We're on Facebook and Twitter. And what about you, Charles?
Well, Nick. As for me, you can reach me at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're talking about all the stuff we talk about here on the Phantom Zone podcast. So all kinds of comic book TV news, when we're talking WandaVision or Watchmen or Stargirl, what have you, or The Boys. And all kinds of comic sci-fi news of my other podcasts for Southgate Media, including, Titan Talk, the Titans podcast they do with Nick, which is on hiatus, but, also do that with Jesse Jackson, where we talk Doom Patrol and Titans, so stay tuned as we wait Season 3 news. And then also Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast they do with Zan Sprouse, where we talk all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch, and we just finished doing our review of the 1989 David Lynch film Wild at Heart, and we are going to be doing next our 1997 film from David Lynch, Lost Highway. So break out the Hank Williams for that, and nothing else. You're going to delight when Zan eventually gets to talk about the wonderful scene that is in this movie featuring Robert Loggia going off on a guy tailgating him. So stay tuned for that, because it's one of her favorite scenes in the movie, and she has a brilliant, brilliant take on that. She's shared with me privately. So I imagine she'll be sharing that with all of you. So stay tuned for that. And then Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where Jesse Jackson and assorted special guest companions join us to talk Doctor Who, Torchwood, the Sarah Jane Adventures. And right now, Rachel Friend from Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, and the Fires Fangirls podcast is joining us right now as we go through, for the month of February, we're discussing the 4 stories in The Trial of a Time Lord, Season 23, from original classic Doctor Who, which is Colin Baker's final season. And right now, we just finished The Mysterious Planet. And next week, we'll be discussing the second part, Mind Warp, where we get to say goodbye to Nicola Bryant's Perry Brown in a very, very sad way.
I'm so glad you kind of sweetened the deal for Rachel's birthday month with her discussing her favorite Doctor,
yes.
Seeing what she feels like about It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, I know, right. Well, she said, apparently all you have to do is say the magic words Colin Baker, and she's there, kind of like Jeannie appearing from I Dream of Jeannie. It's like, ding, she appears. Yeah.
Yes, you rang?
You rang, exactly. So she's like, swoosh, she comes in out of nowhere. So, and then also, last but certainly not least, Drunk Cinema, where Zan Sprouse and I, this is kind of our side gig to Ghostwood, where we have adult conversations, we have adult beverages, and we watch movies that we just love so much. We recently talked The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai for episode 4, and we just recorded last night, in fact, our 5th episode as we discuss Young Frankenstein, a.k.a. Young Frankenstein.
Beautiful, beautiful movie.
It's a fantastic movie. One of the movies that we argue is like one of the all-time best comedy films ever made. I don't think it's a very controversial statement to say that.
No.
And just a genius film, and with a lot of wonderful, wonderful actors. So highly recommend checking that out if you're so inclined. We definitely appreciate the support, and share the links too. We definitely appreciate that as well. All right. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. I know we talked a lot this episode. This is what happens when Jesse's not around, to keep us in line, I guess.
Yes.
This is Charles and Nick, Unchained.
He's like, break it up. Let's finish.
It's like, shut up already. Get on with it. But Jesse hopefully will be back next time for episode 205, as we're getting up there, as we discuss WandaVision episode 6. So, Nick, any final thoughts?
I just can't wait for, like Holly, I can't wait for Friday. I'm really looking forward to seeing now that Evan Peters is in the picture, what's going to happen. So, and we don't even know what the title of the episode is, so it's even more mysterious, so we can do nothing but possess our souls in patience till next week.
Exactly. And, I didn't think they could top episode 4, but this episode 5 certainly seems like it was right up there. We both gave it 9s once again. So let's see what episode 6 has in store for us as we discuss the 6th episode of WandaVision right here on the Phantom Zone podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Ciao.